He's not running anymore. He's awakening. You've waited, you've healed, you've let go. And now, something feels different. The silence doesn't feel like distance anymore. It feels like preparation. The energy between you isn't heavy, it's alive. And the masculine, who once hid from everything he felt, is finally standing at the edge of something sacred. Can you feel it? That deep calm in your body, that quiet pull in your heart, that subtle knowing that he's not who he used to be, because he's changing, he's surrendering, he's remembering, and this time, he's not coming back to run. He's coming back to stay. Watch now to understand the energetic signs that union is near, how the masculine is preparing in silence, and what the feminine must hold, not in hope, but in frequency. He's not who he was. He disappeared. He pulled away. He went silent when things got too real. And for a long time, you thought that silence meant rejection. You thought his absence meant indifference. You thought that maybe he never felt what you felt. But here's what you didn't know, that silence was his initiation. That distance was not avoidance. It was a battlefield. Because what you triggered in him wasn't just love, it was awakening. And awakening is terrifying when you've built your whole identity on survival. He's not who he was when he left. Something has changed. Not on the surface, not yet. But underneath, in the places where ego once ruled, his soul has started to speak louder than the fear. And when that happens, a different kind of masculine begins to emerge. This new version of him doesn't need to control love. He doesn't run from softness. He doesn't measure his worth by performance or power. Because he's starting to see everything he ever truly wanted was found in your presence, not your body, not your attention, but your energy, the way you see him, the way you feel what he hides, the way your silence speaks louder than 1,000 voices. And now that he's spent time without that presence, he knows the truth. He was never running from you. He was running from the version of himself that he saw reflected in your love, the version that didn't feel ready. But now, he's different. He doesn't know how to explain it. He may still hesitate, but inside him, something has softened. His defenses are tired. His pride doesn't taste the same. And the idea of doing life alone no longer feels strong. It feels empty. This is the beginning of his return. Not as a boy seeking comfort, but as a man remembering truth. And you, divine feminine, you can feel it, even before he says a word, even before a message arrives, even if the 3D still looks the same, because energy always speaks first. You feel the weight lifting, the tightness releasing, the quiet reassurance rising in your chest. Something is shifting, something real, and for once, it doesn't feel like waiting, it feels like alignment. Because he's not coming back to be rescued. He's coming back because he finally knows you were never his escape. You were his mirror. And now he's ready to face what he sees. Have you felt this shift in the silence between you? Share your experience in the comments. Your awareness might be the reflection another feminine needs to remember. He's not who he was, and neither are you. He may not say it, he may not know how, but something in his field is shifting, and you can feel it. The masculine energy, once closed off and hardened by pride, survival, and fear, is beginning to soften, not in weakness, but in readiness. And readiness doesn't always look like action. Sometimes it looks like stillness, like awareness, like a man no longer resisting what's always been true. So how do you know he's ready? Not from what he says, but from what you feel. Here are the signs that the divine masculine is preparing to step forward, not from ego, but from soul. 1. His silence no longer feels like avoidance. There's a shift in the quiet. Before, his distance felt cold, defensive, rejecting. Now, there's presence in the silence. You feel him thinking, processing, sensing you, not as a threat, but as a calling. 2. His distractions start to lose their power. The things he once used to avoid himself, parties, work, surface relationships, addictive patterns, no longer satisfy him. He may even feel lost, as if nothing makes sense anymore. That's not regression. That's the soul waking up and stripping away everything that isn't real. 3. He starts to feel you without needing to have you. Before, he ran because your presence overwhelmed him. Now, he feels your energy and it brings him peace, not because he's taking from it, but because he's finally learning to receive it. 4. Emotion begins to rise, even if it doesn't make sense to him. He finds himself crying unexpectedly, feeling tender when he used to shut down, thinking about you not as a fantasy, but as truth. He doesn't even know why, but the soul remembers, even when the mind can't explain. 5. His perception of you is changing. He no longer sees you as the woman who hurt him, exposed him, or asked too much. He sees you as the mirror that loved him through his darkest parts and never asked him to be anything other than real. This is the beginning of return. Not just a return to you, but a return to himself. Because that's what true union is. Not two people needing each other to be complete, but two souls choosing to meet in wholeness. The masculine is being stripped of every false idea of love he ever learned, and now the truth is breaking through. It may be slow, it may be messy, but it's real. You may not see it yet, but if you feel it in your bones, if you wake up thinking of him and don't feel panic but peace, if you sense him in your heart without needing to know the outcome, that's the sign. Not that he's coming back soon, but that he's coming back right. Rooted, awake, ready. Because union doesn't begin with a message. It begins when his energy no longer fights yours. Are you sensing any of these signs in your field or your body? Drop it in the comments. Your awareness might help another feminine realize she's not imagining it. He's waking up, and he's finally ready. What union feels like before it arrives? You've been waiting for something to happen, for a message, a reunion, a sign. But then, something strange begins to take place. Not in the external, but inside you. The ache isn't as loud. The anxiety no longer rules your chest. The longing somehow becomes a quiet knowing. You're not obsessing over timelines. You're not checking your phone like you used to. And yet, you feel him, stronger than before. But it's different now. The pull isn't desperate. It's sacred. The connection hasn't faded. It has deepened, not through contact, but through stillness. Before physical union arrives, something in your field begins to shift. It's not dramatic. There's no announcement. But you begin to feel whole without needing confirmation. You begin to feel love without expecting proof. There is peace now, not because he came back, but because you came home to yourself. And in this inner return, union begins to breathe through you. It's no longer about whether he will call or show up. It's about the frequency you're holding, effortlessly, naturally, silently. You walk through your day differently. You're not waiting, but you're not disconnected either. You're simply present, aware, receptive, and calm. The energetic tension that once wrapped itself around your chest starts to soften. The emotional spirals lose their grip. There's a gentleness in your heart, not because everything is perfect, but because you've stopped demanding answers from the unknown. Something inside you knows it's already happening, not in the future, not one day, now. And it's not happening outside of you. It's happening in the way your energy no longer resists what is. It's happening in the way you feel his energy and don't collapse. It's happening in the way you finally understand that this journey was never about getting him back. It was about becoming the version of you that no longer abandons herself for love. And somehow, without effort, you feel closer to him. Not because he changed, but because you did. Because you let go. Because you trusted. Because you stopped trying to make union happen and allowed union to emerge from within. And now your body knows, your soul recognizes, your breath expands, and even if the physical hasn't caught up yet, the connection feels more real than ever. You're not chasing, you're not performing, you're not questioning your worth. You're simply holding love, not as a fantasy, but as a state of being. This is what union feels like before it arrives. Not excitement, not butterflies, but deep, quiet peace. A love that doesn't scream but anchors. A knowing that doesn't beg but trusts. And when that vibration is alive in you, union is no longer a destination. It becomes the ground you walk on, the silence you rest in, the truth you finally stopped fighting. If you've felt this shift, the softening, the stillness, the quiet certainty, share it in the comments. You might help another soul realize union always arrives inside first. When the masculine begins to rest inside himself, everything changes. There's a moment in the twin flame journey that feels almost invisible, but it changes everything. It's the moment the divine masculine begins to settle, not in your life, not into the relationship, but into himself. Can you feel that subtle shift? That strange stillness in the connection that doesn't feel like distance, but like something sacred beginning to ground itself. For so long, he was restless, always running, always defending, always needing to prove or control or escape. You felt it in the way he withdrew when things got too real, in the way he looked at you like you were both his deepest desire and his greatest fear. But now, something's changing. And no, he may not say it out loud. He may not even fully understand it. But in the silence, in the energy, in the way your body responds, when you think of him, there's peace. Not closure, not absence. Peace. What happens when a man who's lived his whole life in resistance finally begins to surrender? When his nervous system starts to relax for the first time in years? When his soul begins to whisper louder than the voice of his fear? You feel it, not in grand gestures, but in the softening. The tension between you starts to dissolve. The energetic chaos becomes coherence. You wake up not with panic or confusion, but with a sense of knowing. Have you noticed how your body reacts differently now when you think of him? Like your heart recognizes he's not in the same place he was before. This is the first true sign of union. Not a message, not a phone call, but his energy resting, his presence becoming stable. And not because you're chasing it or pulling him back with your mind, but because he's coming home to himself. This is a man no longer running, not because he figured everything out, but because he got tired of the war. He realized that fighting what's real only brings more emptiness. And your love, the kind that didn't demand, didn't beg, didn't try to fix him, became the mirror he couldn't ignore anymore. He begins to feel safe inside himself. And from that safety, he can finally feel you clearly, not through fear, not through fantasy, but through truth. Have you ever sensed that moment when his energy returned not with intensity, but with stillness, not with fire, but with grounding? That's the moment everything starts to realign. That's when the connection stops being a storm and starts becoming a sanctuary. You are no longer a trigger, you are a reflection. And he is no longer avoiding the mirror. He's beginning to see his own soul through the love you held for him and for yourself. That's why this part of the journey feels so calm, so tender, and sometimes so strange. Because when the masculine stops resisting, you stop needing to hold everything for both of you. There's space now, space to breathe, space to receive, space for something real to be built, not on need, but on resonance. This is what union feels like before it takes form. The masculine no longer fights what his heart already knows. He no longer needs to control what's meant for him. And in that inner peace, the relationship begins to shift. Not with drama, but with depth. Not with urgency, but with truth. Have you felt this shift in your connection? That stillness in his field that feels more honest than any words ever could? Let us know in the comments. Your experience might be the exact confirmation another feminine needs to trust what she's sensing too. How the feminine holds the frequency of union. There is a sacred moment in the journey when everything starts shifting, not because the masculine has returned, but because the feminine has stopped waiting. She's not giving up. She's not closing her heart. But she's no longer holding union as a hope. She's holding it as a frequency. Have you felt this shift in yourself? When love stops feeling like longing and starts feeling like home? This moment isn't loud. It doesn't come with certainty or closure, but it's unmistakable. Something in you has anchored. You're no longer moving from lack. You're not asking the connection to give you anything. You're embodying the very energy that union requires to exist. That's the secret. Union isn't something you attract by effort. It's something you become. And when you become it, everything around you begins to move, including him. Holding the frequency of union doesn't mean being perfect. It doesn't mean being unshakable. It means being present with yourself, with your body, with your truth. You begin to choose peace over control, stillness over strategy. You trust what your energy is doing, even when your mind doesn't understand. And you start to notice you're not spiraling when you feel his presence anymore. You're breathing through it. You're welcoming it, not with urgency, but with recognition. Can you feel how different it is now? The way you relate to his silence, the way your nervous system no longer contracts when he pulls back. That's not indifference. That's maturity. That's the feminine stepping into her divine center, not to fix the connection, but to become the safe ground where real union can happen. And here's the truth. The masculine cannot meet a feminine who's still reaching. He can only meet her when she rests, when she trusts, when she allows love to flow without demanding shape or timeline, when her love is not a transaction, but a transmission. And that's what you're learning now, how to hold the connection without holding on to the outcome. This is the feminine's power. She holds. She doesn't push. She doesn't chase. She doesn't collapse. She radiates. She listens. She leads energetically. She knows that union doesn't come when she's finally worthy enough. It comes when she no longer confuses love with fear. And now that you've stopped abandoning yourself, the entire field between you begins to recalibrate. Have you noticed how different your energy feels lately? Not because he's changed, but because you have. You're not trying to control what he feels. You're not begging the universe for signs. You're simply living in your truth. And in that truth, union isn't something you wait for anymore. It's something you walk inside of. Every day, every breath, every moment you choose alignment over anxiety. This is how union finds you, through the way you return to yourself, through the way you honor your own expansion, your own joy, your own journey. He may not be beside you yet, but you're no longer behind. You're already in the frequency of what you came here to live. And from that place, everything is possible. Are you holding the energy of union inside you even before it manifests physically? Share it in the comments. Your truth could remind another woman that the shift begins not in him, but in her. You're not waiting, you're aligning. There comes a point in this journey when you realize you were never really waiting for him. You were waiting for yourself, to remember, to rise, to return to the truth you always carried. And now, something inside you knows the waiting is over. Not because he arrived, but because you did. Can you feel that? That inner shift where union no longer feels like a distant dream, but a frequency that lives inside your breath. The old version of you held love with fear. She thought she had to earn it, chase it, hold it tightly so it wouldn't disappear. But the woman you are now, she holds love with open hands. She trusts its intelligence. She knows that real union doesn't come when we push. It comes when we align. And that alignment doesn't mean perfection. It means presence, integrity, choosing to stay connected to your truth even when the path is unclear. The masculine feels this shift, even if he doesn't understand it with words. His soul recognizes it. And that recognition is what begins to awaken his own alignment. But the most powerful part, you didn't do it to get him back. You did it to come back to yourself. And that's why it's working. You've stopped orbiting his energy. You've stopped wondering if you're doing enough. You've stopped outsourcing your inner peace to his behavior. Instead, you've chosen your center. You've chosen your heart. You've chosen your evolution, even if it meant walking alone for a while. And that choice is what makes union possible. Because it's not about two people finally agreeing. It's about two souls meeting in the same vibration. Do you remember how much you used to need answers? And now, you're okay with mystery. You're okay not knowing exactly when or how, because you've already found what really matters. Peace. That peace is the evidence that you're no longer stuck in separation. You've moved into wholeness, and wholeness doesn't wait. It radiates. Maybe he's already returning. Maybe he's still quiet. Maybe union is days away or months. But none of that controls you anymore. Because you've already said yes, not just to him, but to the truth of who you are. And that yes is what changes the field. That yes is what softens the silence. That yes is what turns longing into resonance. Can you feel how far you've come? Not in how close he is, but in how deeply you've chosen yourself through every twist of this path. That's not small. That's not subtle. That's everything. So now, when people ask you if you're waiting for him, you smile. You don't correct them. But you know the truth. You're not waiting, you're aligning. And from that place, that grounded, sacred, sovereign place, love can finally meet you, not to fill a void, but to reflect the fullness you already became? Have you crossed that threshold where the need for union turned into the embodiment of it? Tell us in the comments. Your alignment is the vibration that will inspire and activate so many others on this path.